Hello and welcome to the Election Corner on One Man Think Tank. Today we're going to be discussing the 2020 U.S. election in Pennsylvania, namely the statewide races. Now, for Pennsylvania in 2020, the only statewide race will be the U.S. presidential election. However, this information will prove relevant for the 2022 election as well, as that will include a race for both governor and the Senate, in which the Republican incumbent has just indicated he won't be running again for re-election, so it's going to be an open race, and this is probably going to tell us who it's going to favor. But for right now, let's look at the current 2020 polling, and then we'll take a look through the history of the Pennsylvania presidential maps. Yeah, it's favoring Joe Biden. I don't have much else. Even Bloody Trafalgar Group is favoring Joe Biden. So, yeah, this race is solidly in favor of Joe Biden. Like, we see all the squiggles, but as you can see, straight line with a slight increase for Joe, straight line with a slight decrease for Trump. Bad maps overall for the Republican, great maps for the Democrat. Now let's go back in time to the 2016 presidential election, and the only one of the 21st century where Pennsylvania has been won by a Republican. As you can see, the rural areas of the state up in the mountains are incredibly red. These are a dark, dark red. That means a lot of support for the Republican Party. However, there are a bunch of light shades of red, which we'll review in a little bit, but these lighter areas are ones typically won by the Democrats. So the fact that it wasn't won by Hillary Clinton definitely indicated that, maybe the suburbs are drifting away from the Democrats and such. But in practice, I don't think that's the case. And we'll get to that when we compare this map to the 2018 Senate map, but we'll get to that in a moment. Now over to 2012, and this map's a little bit more typical of what we've come to expect of Pennsylvania in the 21st century. This sort of streak of blue on the right side, where you've got Philadelphia, its core and many of its denser suburbs, the Allentown-Bethlehem area, and of course Wilkes-Barre-Scranton. This will also help Joe Biden, originally coming from there, and many people assuming he still is there. Over here we have Harrisburg, the capital of the state. Here we have what I believe is the State College area. Literally, the area is called State College, which hosts the big central university of the state. Here we have Pittsburgh, and up here we have Erie. These are the major city areas in Philadelphia, and as you can see, when Barack Obama won, he won these areas with some lightness in the suburbs that Hillary Clinton also had, but as you can see, she was not as successful in the city areas. Another note I'll make. Right here, there's a very core section of suburbs, such as Lancaster and York, Pennsylvania, as well as Reading, Pennsylvania, which are all theoretically blue, but in practice, not really, because they are basically suburban sprawl with a small town center. 2008, however, you can see during Barack Obama's big year, he really swept in. He won those areas, managed to get Harrisburg, State College, and I believe this covers Altoona, I'm not 100% sure, as well as some areas in the north of the state, as well as the suburbs of Wilkes-Barre-Scranton. This is by far the best a Democrat has done in Pennsylvania in the 21st century. Back in 2004, we can see about kind of the worst the Democrats can do while still winning. A lot of pale red throughout the suburban areas and rural areas of the state, with a lot of pale, not necessarily super pale, but paler blue and dark blue Philadelphia. I nearly called it Pittsburgh. That would have gotten me some angry comments. But as you can see, Democrats really need to do well in these areas, and like I say in every one of these videos, really pale out the Republican areas, while Republicans need to do the exact opposite. Dark red in the rural areas and pale out the blue ones. And going back to 2000, as we can see, 2004 seemed to be a negative trend away from the Democrats, with them losing a couple of districts they won, but as you can see, and also areas becoming more Republican, but as you can see when we go back, Barack Obama was pretty much reversed that trend. So let's look at our last map, and this is one we'll compare with 2016. Actually, before we do that, one last going over of this, where you can see originally we had these two big blue strips on the side of the states, the real Pittsburgh into the what we'd now consider Rust Belt area, with Erie up top, and the Philadelphia, Allentown, Wilkes-Barre, Scranton corridor, with the stuff in the middle kind of picked up. But that has seemingly disappeared. So looking at 2016, we see the absolute collapse of this. But what about 2018? The Democrats naturally won there, and we see a kind of new formulation of the map, very pale across the board for the Republicans. Like, across the board. And it doesn't help we've got a different color gradient here, but you can kind of tell the similarities. There is no dark red, really. All of the Republicans' numbers really dropped in this. And Democrats... Oh, remember how I mentioned how it's kind of suburban sprawl cities here? Notice how the Democrats picked those up hardcore. This is an indication about suburban voters turning away from the Republican Party and over to the Democrats. And I'm going to say here, it was a Democratic incumbent in this race, but also the Republican challenger wasn't a slouch. He was actually a representative in the U.S. House and ran a decent campaign. He got his ass kicked, but he ran a decent campaign. So this is really, I think, the modern incarnation of a Democratic victory. A lot of pale red, winning the Philadelphia, Scranton area hard. I mean hard. As well as the Harrisburg, State College, relatively Greater Pittsburgh, and Erie. And kind of lowering the Republican numbers across the state. So this leaves us with an important question. What do the Democrats need to do in 2020 to win? Now, as we've said before, Joe Biden, far and away, running away with these in the numbers. And it's not like there's a lot of undecideds left either. In most of these polls, if Trump got every single undecided voter, he still wouldn't win. So we got like Quinnipiac, Emerson, all of these people who theoretically are some of the best middle ground pollsters, and some even lean Republican, looking at you, Monmouth. They don't lean Republican hard, but they tend to understate Democratic turnout. Far and away saying that Joe Biden's in the lead. So I'm thinking we're probably going to get a mix of this map and this map, where we're going to probably see Joe Biden regain a little bit of territory up here in the suburbs of Wilkes-Barre, Scranton, and Allentown, and also a little bit of gain on the coasts. The edges of Pennsylvania. I don't think he'll be able to flip these seats, but I'm guessing we'll probably have red core, and the rest will be won by the Democrats, possibly with higher turnout in the suburban areas. So, if you like the video, because we're at that point, if you like the video, drop a like down below, and also a comment. I'm always curious to hear your guys' opinions. If you want to see more from the channel, click the subscribe button and the notification bell so you can be alerted when new content comes out. If you want to hear more from me outside of YouTube, I have a Twitter at OneManThinkTank1, the Roman numeral. You can find the link in the description. And most importantly, as always, have a wonderful day.